I'm Patty Bennett, and I work at the field office in Kansas City. I've been there since May of 2018, and before that, I worked for 11 years at the Financial Management Center in Kansas City. So I have a little bit of experience with the two-year tool and Section 8 funding and how it works. I'm going to go through a PowerPoint presentation. I'll do that kind of fast or somewhat fast. And then what I thought I would do is get, if somebody wants me to use their tool to demonstrate, and if not, I picked a random tool from a random housing authority in Tennessee that we can kind of go over and see a live tool. So you might be thinking about that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. I'm going to close my camera because the screen with the camera is a little bitty one. Okay, can you guys all see this okay? Alrighty. So this is just a clear tool step-by-step guide. It kind of goes over the parts of the tool. Of course, the objective of the tool is to analyze the situation, to see how you can lease. I ran a tool just today for one of my housing authorities, and they look really good for 2020, but 2021, they're kind of a little bit close. So the things that you do now with regard to leasing are really going to affect you more next year than they do this year. So this is the contents. I won't go over that because we'll just go over the contents. Obtaining the tool. There's a link in the presentation for where you obtain the two-year tool as a housing authority. Now, what I like to tell my housing authorities is if you want a tool, just ask me, and it's not a big deal for me to get a tool. I think it's also faster when the field office does a tool than it is when you're downloading, and there's a lot of data in those tools. Oh, and another thing, when you do a tool, don't keep adding on to the same tool you have. Download a new tool every single time. The reason is that there's funding that you may get periodically through the year, and that is put into the tool. So I believe that's done on a monthly basis. It might even be done more than monthly. When I go in there, I can see what date they've updated it. So when you start, it's a new screen now. You don't have these two areas out to the side. It's just the center section. And when we go over tool, I'll show you that. So you just put the PHA number in, and then you have to click open to your tool. So when you look at it, your funding information is on the left-hand side. And that is, can you guys see this? Do you want me to make it a little bigger? I'll go just a little bigger here. I don't want to go too big. Let's see. That looks good. Okay, so the funding information, this housing authority for 2020 got $1.8 million. They got no set aside funding. The yellow cells are editable. So these, the white cells and the blue cells, they're blocked. They either have formulas or just information that's pulled in from somewhere else. This housing authority got about $9,000 in income. That's probably from laundry machines, vending machines, that kind of thing. If you look at the bottom, you've got total funding. The screen doesn't show it. But what it just basically does is going to add up your annual budget authority and anything that may be in these cells. Then your income, and then your reserves from the prior year. I'll show you where that is. These are funding proration offset levels. Re-benchmarking, they're figured 100% proration, and that would be for the next year. And then your 25% here is what your offset could be if you have any reserves that are subject to offset. And we'll go to that too. So the basic layout again, success rate. This housing authority has a success rate of 65%. Default on the tool is 70. So meaning if you put 10 vouchers on the street, 7 of them are going to lease. 45% of those 7 that lease would be in 30 days, 45% 30 to 60, nothing from 60 to 120. And then from 120 to 150, they have about 10% that lease. We've got an inflation factor in here for 2021. And this is just an old tool that we put new dates in. So you can see what the inflation, if they have one, it will be here, what they're estimating. And on this case, they estimated at 1.9%. In the end of the year summary, and I've got to get this out of the way, right here. So you've got this housing authority has basically leased 96.2% of their HAP as a percent of just eligibility. 96.5% as a percent of their ACC units or their unit months available. And most housing authorities can't get close to this. This is as a percent of all funds, which would include the PHA income and also includes reserves. This housing authority is projected to have $161,404 at the end of the year. And about 17,000 of that may be subject to offset if Congress mandates an offset. Okay, these are a little bit out of order. Okay, so you can click access additional tools here. When I go in here, I update my housing authorities for 2019 and 2020 at this time. I always pull the last 2 years because I know that housing authorities can go back and change VMS forever. Okay, now this is beginning year restricted net position. The only number you really need to be concerned about is this number right here in yellow. And I'll go over that a little bit more later. And this is your administrative fee analysis. And you can see a detail if you click on here, but for the focus of this, we're just going to look at HAP. Of course, if you lease more units, you get more admin fees too. Then the very bottom part of the tool is your basic leasing. I want to get this a little smaller so everything fits in. There. Okay. So this is the basic leasing, and this is where you put your unit months. Well, unit months available is pre-populated. Unit months leased, you put in the numbers that come into the tool are populated from your VMS entries. And your same thing with your actual HAP. Now, right now, on the 22nd of October, September VMS was due. So when I update my housing authorities, I try to update them after the 22nd of the month. So I have to ask for less information. I'm asking right now for October unit months leased, and October HAP payments, and November, and then how many vouchers are on the street now and how many vouchers they plan to put on the street in November. And I'll get that information before I send the tool to the housing authority and then say, let's talk. Or in some cases, I don't need to talk. There's also the graphs are on another part of the tool. We can look at those. I am not so much visual. I like to look at the numbers. And if somebody is a visual person, you have graphs here. Okay, per unit cost. This is also in that bottom section. And well, this housing authority, they went from like $301 to $303 in August. And the tools I'm doing, I'm not seeing that right now. I'm seeing, I'm assuming because of COVID, a larger increase in HAP. The tool is designed to trend your HAP. The ones that I've looked at though, I don't feel like it's trending quite right. And I'll kind of look at the trends. And if you want, you can put numbers in here. I can make this 307, which would change this to 307 all the way down. If your HAP is trending upward, like it is right now, I'm seeing a lot of, and you don't trend this HAP, you're going to get projections. I mean, that are going to probably put you into shortfall. Okay, so the way I look at the tool to break it down, there's three main parts, and I used to have a two-year tool before that. Well, it wasn't a two-year tool; it was my own projection tool when I worked at the Financial Management Center before the two-year tool was even a thing. So I had three main components. It's what you, and I compared it to a checkbook, and these are the only three components that I used, and I got pretty accurate projections. This tool will do a lot better because there's a lot of fine tuning you can do. So it's what you start the year with, like your beginning balance in a checkbook, and then how much you get paid. So that would be your HAP for the current year, and then how much you spend as you reported in VMS. What you start the year with. Okay. Again, you want to look at this number in the yellow cell. You can change this because it's yellow, it's editable. I generally am not going to change this. That is the job of the Financial Management Center. And if there's a discrepancy, they're the ones that are going to iron it out. So this column right here is your net restricted position according to HUD. And this is the net restricted position according to the Housing Authority. And these two numbers are pretty close. I believe Vicki Pauley was going to do this presentation with me, and she is on the shortfall prevention team at part-time. And she said for shortfall, these numbers have to be within $1,000. And I haven't worked at the house. And even when I did work at the FMC, I didn't do a lot of the reconciliations. My job was something else, but that is the job of the financial analyst there. So I look at this number. Now these numbers are pretty far off because this number on the PHA side is going to contain unrestricted net position or your admin reserves. So it's always going to be off, provided you have any admin fee reserves. Okay. And I have 3 slides on this on your handout. This gets pretty confusing. And like I said, if there's a discrepancy, go to your financial analyst at the FMC. What HUD uses in the tool, we look at the HUD reconciled number right here, and they look at the PHA number here, and they take the lowest. Okay, and here, these are just more explanations. The bottom line is, this is what you start the year with. Okay, then what you get paid, and this is the top left-hand corner of the two-year tool. Okay, in 2020, this housing authority got 1.8 million. We're estimating in 2021, they're going to get 1.7 million. And there's even an estimate out here for year 3. Now, you guys know, I've seen funding come out where the housing authorities know as late as maybe July as a worst case. Best case is probably March or April, where you know what you're going to get for the following year. On these tool estimates have been really pretty accurate since they've started using the tool. They're watching trending, they're watching what Congress is doing, just keeping their pulse on everything so that they can give you the best estimates possible for the following year. So when you get to the first of the year, don't be afraid to lease if the tool says that you can lease. Okay, and then how much you spend. This is in the bottom left-hand portion of the tool. And these numbers are pulled from VMS, unless they're blank, because VMS lags. And then we have to ask the housing authority, or of course you'll know your own numbers and you can plug them in. So then there's other variables. And like I said, I used to use just those 3 factors: what you started the year with, what you got paid, and what you spent. For my projections, it was pretty simplistic, and it worked. But this tool really tweaks things with your success rate, your annual turnover rate, and your vouchers issued and projected to be issued. So again, your success rate is here. Default is 70. That means 7 out of 10 vouchers are leased up, with 3 coming back to the housing authority. Now, if you don't quite know what your success rate is, or you are very close in your numbers, and generally I don't have housing authorities fill this part out. It's going to be extra work, and it's something I can't do. Only the housing authority can do. But this really fine tunes the success rate numbers. So if you click on access additional tools, and then you click on success rate tracking, it takes you to this screen. And so in this case, it would be 2000, I think it'd be 19 and 20 here. So you're going to take your 2019, how many vouchers are issued, how many failed, and in what months they leased. So it looks at your past history, which of course may be different now because of COVID. But it looks at your past history, and it will automatically fill in the tool how many were leased in 30 days, 30 to 60 days, 60 to 90 days. So if you really want to cut it close. Now, I have a housing authority I'm working with right now that is, I think we're going to do this. They're trying to not only maximize how many vouchers they can lease, but in turn that brings up your admin fees, because you get admin fees based upon what you've leased. And this is the success rate time. It's time from issuance to HAP effective date. And currently this housing authority is running at 2.28 months. This is all filled in by default unless you fill this out. And all you have to do is click, I'll show it to you when we get into a tool, but this transfers it to a new 2-year tool. So say, you filled this out and you don't want to download a new 2-year tool because you've got all this filled out, you can move this table to a new 2-year tool. Okay, annual turnover rate is pulled out of PIC. You can change it, but if that's what you're reporting in PIC, your 50058s are accurate, I would leave the number. There's a difference here, and these are pretty close, 29.5 and 29.52. This is, you've got 60 days normally. I think right now it's 90 with the waiver, but 60 days normally to turn your 5/8 in. So say you're behind on your 5/8. This number is more complete but older. If you're current on your 5/8 and there's a difference between the two, put this number here in this area. Okay, and then again, vouchers issued or projected to be issued, they're going to go right here. Okay, so once you get the data in, you go up to the top right. And I look at this area, it's leasing and spending outcomes current and following year projections. This housing authority, I would like to see them lease a little more, just depending. You can't, of course, over lease unless you have a lot of zero HAPs. This is the dollar amount that may be subject to offset. Ideally, when you're doing your 2-year tool, you'd like to see zero HAP reserves as a 1231, but the chances of that happening and you're not going over, or that's almost impossible to get that to zero. But this number 0, that's what I really want to see, because there'd be no offset, most likely. So once you get an offset taken, that money's gone forever. It just goes out of the program, goes back to Treasury. So you really hate to see that happen. And that's when Congress might say, oh, well, we need $22 billion for the Section 8 program. But gosh, these PHAs have all this money that they're holding in reserves because they get reports on it. And then they say, well, we're only going to give 20 billion. And so HUD figure out how you're going to take the rest back and make the housing authorities spend their reserves. Okay, so another reason to spend your reserves. The housing authorities get funded based upon what they spent the prior year. So at least probably since 2010, housing authorities have gotten funded based upon what they spent in the prior calendar year. It used to be the federal fiscal year before that. But for 2021, if we do it the same way that we've been doing it, HUD will take 2020 calendar year expenses as you've reported them in VMS. So when you get that get ready letter from the FMC, make sure that your expenses are accurate. So since new funding is based on spending, a PHA that spends more will get more funding in the next year. And that includes your reserves. So if you've got 500,000 in reserves or 161,000 in reserves, and you spend that money on half, that raises your money for the next year. Okay, how does this affect CMAP? Okay, leasing indicators. Okay, CMAP indicator 13 is LISA. It's determined by unit months leased as a percent of the unit months available, or HAP expense as a percent of eligibility. So when we look at CMAP, this is going to give you a pretty good idea of how you're sitting on your leasing. This number is not, because this includes your reserves, and it's always going to be lower. The middle number is going to be lower than this one, because in my opinion, it wouldn't be fair. So, just you got to spend your reserves, although we like to see that. So you get 20 points for the indicator 13 if you're 98% or more, 15 points if you're 95 to 97%, and 0 points if you're less than 95. So we talked a little bit about the PUC, and I found it's more important this year than ever. In many cases, they even trend down. I haven't seen that. I have been doing a lot of manual PUC overrides, and I don't go crazy on them, but if they've gone from 301 to 321, from January to August, I'm going to kind of look at how much has changed every month, because also this number is your total HAP divided by your unit months leased. So it's just an average of all your HAPs. And then there's a tab, the PUC analysis tab. If you'd like to see stuff on graphs, this is the tab for you. But I just like to look at the numbers. Okay, and again, you can use the manual PUC override, and we've already talked about that. And this one trends a little more. They're going from 644 to 609. So this PUC was actually trending down. But as you can see, your last actual carries forward all the way down. So that's the first part. Does anybody have any questions? I think it's a lot better when you get into a live tool, and it's a lot better in person. Virtual ones, sometimes I have no questions at all. Does anybody have a PHA that you guys want me to use? Or would you rather me, because I can call yours up, I can pull your two-year tool up, and I don't see where my comments are.
Miss Patty, if
When
you
I'm-
look at the bottom of your screen, if you move your mouse down, there should be a chat button. If you click that chat button, it'll come up on the right side of your screen under your participant.
Because I'm sharing desktop. Well, can you, is there anything in there?
There is not. There's no one in there. Nobody's typed it.
Okay. All righty. If you can look at it, because when I'm sharing my desktop, I'm not seeing.
Sure, I'll let you know if anybody comments in there.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a two-year tool here for a demo. Unless you're sure you don't want me to demo yours. And this is Dayton Housing Authority in Dayton, Tennessee. I just randomly called up a tool. Okay, so I'm not going to do the VMS, download VMS right now, but normally if I was doing this tool, I would access additional tools and say VMS data upload. And it doesn't like that. But anyway, 19, and I can choose 19 or 20. Okay. So this housing authority got 1.3 million in 2020. Okay. Now we're estimating they're going to get more money next year. And the reason is they've only spent 85% of all of their money, including their reserves. They spent 104% of what they got this year. So they're spending the 1.3 million plus a little more. Okay, this housing authority got no set aside. And for set aside, if you've got high cost ports, you can apply for set aside. Are you guys all familiar? Is everybody familiar with how you apply for set aside? Okay, yeah, when you get the funding notice, it tells in there what set aside categories are. And then if you've got high cost ports, if you've got like unusual circumstances, they hardly ever give anything out for that right now. And then a lot of it is set aside for shortfalls. So, okay, this housing authority had $1,300 in income. So this was their total. That's the 1.345 plus their 1,300. And then we look and they had, this number's more because these reserves right here are pulled in from here. I'm gonna make this just a little bigger. This is at 70%. That's probably pretty small when I'm sharing. So the 286,000 is pulled from this number right here, which is of course the lower of these two numbers. Okay. So they've got $1.6 million that this housing authority can spend. You can also see they've got 406 units. They've got a success rate of 70%, which is default. And if I'm when I do a housing authorities tool and they have the 70% in there, I want to take a look at that and make sure that really is what they said their success rate is. I mean, that happens, but since it's also the default, I want to make sure. Okay, they got an estimated inflation rate in here of 1.6%. And that was different from the other tool that I showed you. On this one, they've got 19.9% and 16.77 is the annual turnover rate. Okay. I'm going to ask this housing authority, are you current on your 50058s? And if they say yes, I'm going to put 16.77 right there. Okay. The next thing I do, I'm going to go down here and I will, I'm going to want to know what they're leasing, and some of this VMS will pull in when I do that. But let's say they have 317. They've got, so let's see what this looks like. I want to keep my PUC somewhat similar. Okay, so we'll make them 318 and 318, and let's see the PUC here. If it's trending, I just want to make sure I trend it. And then let's make this one 22. Okay, so add November's an estimate. I've probably done that a little bit high. We'll go to 121. Okay, so this housing authority went from $368 per unit a month in January. And they went, before I started messing with the PUC, they went to $379, an $11 difference. And then I'm showing them up to $381. Now, this housing authority is trending. So this two-year tool trended the PUCs. I can tell, well, once you put a number in here, it changes everything from here down until you change this number. Does that make sense? How the PUCs have trended on this? If you guys have any questions, just unmute. So the tool says, hey, it looks like this housing authority by the end of 2021, they're going to be at $430 per unit cost. So going back up here, once I get all that data in, I want to look here and kind of see, just take a look at what's going on. First thing I want to see, is this red and pink? And it is. And this is excess reserve subject to offset. Now, we're going to say we want to take this number 128,907, and right here it says year 2 excess reserve offset. And all these cells that have the little red thing in the corner, if you hover over them, it gives an explanation. Okay. But what this is doing is taking 25% of the 128,907 and throwing it right here. So if you have a number here, there's a likelihood that you're going to have an offset next year. Now, it may or may not be this amount. This is just an estimate because we never know what Congress is going to do. But it gives you an idea. If there's any number here, you're probably going to be subject to an offset. So if I type, let's see, I'm going to do Control O. Okay. So this tells you, when you do Control O, it tells you how the offsets are calculated. And then let me see, there's one of these cells told exactly, how to determine the offset. And I can't get my screen big enough to show this, but it, depending on the PHA size, HUD determines a reasonable amount of reserves. But this is what they're figuring this housing authority could have. Of course, there's no PHA income because year 2 hasn't happened yet. So what I was kind of talking about, I want to go over one thing before I do that. Access additional tools, and we're going to do success rate tracking. Okay. So it's got 19 and 20. So you can just fill in numbers here. How many vouchers you issued, how many failed, and what months they were issued. Now it's a process and I'm not going to do it here, but once you complete this, move success rate and time from issuance to HAP and to the projection tab. So you just click this button and it takes it back over to the projection and analysis tab. If you want to take this sheet and it's completed and transfer the table to a new two-year tool, you can do that right here. So we'll just say that that thing keeps popping up and that kind of drives me crazy. Okay, so 1.6% estimated inflation rate against 70% success rate, 16.77% into participation or turnovers. So what I want to do is come down here and look at, we've got our PUCs trending, so that's good. So I want to talk to this housing authority. I'm going to say, how many vouchers do you want to put on the street? You want to maximize your admin fees. You want to maximize your HAP expenditure so you get money. Next year, more money, and you know that they've got money. We saw that up above on the upper right-hand portion of the tool. So it's October, so I want to know how many vouchers are currently on the street. And let's say they've got 25 on the street. They're gonna, this one drives me crazy. Okay, they're gonna put 30 on November and they're gonna put 50 in December. So let's see what happens. Okay, the reserves are gonna go down subject to offset, and we've only got a $22,000 offset right now projected, but we've gone way in the hole for 2021. So you can see that what you do right now has very little effect for 2020. The big effect is going to be on 2021. And I knew that that would put us in the hole. So we'll take this one out. And I think we're okay. If they want to put 25 vouchers on the street in October, 30 in November, nothing in December. But what we're going to say is, what we're going to do is go back up here and look. They've got 90,000 subject to offset in 2020. They have nothing subject to offset in 2021. Okay. And they have $53,000 worth of reserves at the end of 2021. If I go back down here and say we had 50, just put 25 in there. No, I don't want quite that much. Let's go to 20. Yeah, we better go to 10. Okay, we're going to go to 10, maybe 12. Okay, if they put 12 on the street in December, of course, that's going to have a big impact on 2021. And you're cutting yourself down at that point without any vouchers issued in 2021 to $18,000 worth of reserves from 205. I think that's cutting it a little bit too close because you can still lease in January, February, March. And again, the PUC on this housing authority is trended. If you can see that it stops trending upwards, you can change this. This will have a huge impact on what happens the rest of the year. If I take these trending numbers out, it changes everything to 384. And I've got a great big reserve here. And that's just because the puck quit trending upwards. Do you guys have any questions, or is there anything you want to see that I haven't shown you?
Is this supposed to be on slide 33?
Let me look at these slides. 33 is the PUC, yes.
Okay.
And that's where you trend it. Okay.
Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Any other questions? the big thing here is if you, well, if I go back down here, I'm gonna do a Control Z and take these out. Or put my trends back in here. You know, I think this is just cutting it a little bit too close, even with the trending. We know that the trending's going on. We know it may not keep going up, but it could get worse. And so, you know, if they've been carrying a $200,000 reserve, and we think, let's see, if you take 205, 484 and subtract the 9695, $114,789, which is the difference between this number and this number, is what HUD thinks is a reasonable reserve for this housing authority. And that would be zero subject to offset. So if HUD thinks 114 is reasonable, even though I'd like to see this at zero, I don't really want to see this at zero at the beginning of the year or in October of the year before. Because you still got all that time to help, help people and lease vouchers. Now, if you'll notice what we tried to do here, what I tried to demonstrate was we're spending our reserves. They started the year with almost 300,000. They're down to 205,000, and then they're down to 18,000. Now, your year 3 money is going to be affected by the 2021 numbers right here. When they spend that much money, if you look, every year they're getting more BA, budget authority. And the reason that they're getting more money from HUD every year, as an estimate, of course, is because they're spending those reserves down. And so they get the money for spending those reserves. Now the other thing is you can't lease above your baseline, which you guys probably know. I have housing authorities that are bumping right up against their baseline. I actually saw one housing authority that bumped up against their baseline and still had a ton of money left. And I don't know what they can do in that situation. But if you're bumping up against your baseline, the way that HUD has been calculating, okay, so HUD doesn't pay for overleasing. It's against the law. It's mandated that we're not supposed to fund overlease. But the way we calculate it is we take your lowest HAPs. So if you've got 0 HAPs, whatever your lowest HAPs are, those are going to be the ones. FMC will contact you and say, hey, you've overleased. I need all your lowest HAP amounts. And you send those in. And if I talked to one housing authority, they had like 200 0 HAPs. And they had significantly overleased, but they're not going to get penalized money-wise because of the 0 HAPs. And that also feeds into your averages. And once those 0 HAPs fall off, your PUC will go up too. Any questions about any of that? Or anything at all? Or do you guys have want to give me your housing authority number and I can bring your tool up if you have specific questions? We can go over to this tab. This is where all of your charts are, which I wish Vicki Polly was supposed to be on this call with me. And she's sick today, so she couldn't do it. She has been working with the shortfall team and has learned quite a bit more about the tool just from the shortfall team. But one of these has a drop down. And so, okay, I'll make this bigger. That turned out really small. So this is your average monthly change in your PUC analysis. So you can use this drop down and you can go to the last actual. All this did was quit trending the PUC.
Miss Patty, I don't know if everybody is seeing what I'm seeing, but on my screen, your slide is stuck on 33. So I don't know if you're on slide 33, but I thought I should let you know.
That's
Oh
what
no,
mine's on.
I'm actually on a live tool. Oh, you know what? I think I have to reshare. Let's see.
That's why I asked about slide 33.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay. Did you see anything on the 2-year tool demo?
No.
Nope.
Oh my gosh, I wish someone would have said something. Okay, so can you see the 2-year tool now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so let me start this over. I'm so sorry. I'm used to Skype where it just changes.
I thought our
Okay.
internet is blipping there for a second because we're in ice. It stayed there for far too long, so I thought I should let you know.
No, I'm blipping here. Okay, so I apologize for that. But when this is the tool, this is Dayton, Tennessee, and this is what they're getting for the year. This is what they're getting for year 2 and year 3. Okay, so and as you can see, as I said before, they're going up just barely because in this instance, I do not have the trending on this. Right here, they had the annual turnover rate. It was like 18%. But because I would ask them, are your 5058s current? And if they say yes, I'm going to just put 16.77 in here. Okay. This housing authority, we're showing that they're going to have 91,000 at the end of the year, subject to offset. The difference between this number and this number is $114,789. And that is, that's what HUD considers a reasonable amount of reserves for this size housing authority. If you, I'm going to oops this up a little bit. Okay. You go to this, it tells you, and I don't think, let's see, let's show the notes. Okay. Let's see if we can see all. This is the percentage by which the excess reserves are offset. So they're saying on this tool that it's 25%. Now, the most important, how does HUD determine this offset percentage? Let's see. Whoop. You got to be able to scroll down here. I'm not sure it will let me. No, it will not let me get in there. But if you're working with the tool, any of these cells that have the little red in the corner, that will pop up a note. And then if you just click on this, right click, it'll say show hide note. So if you want to read it, if you just hover over it, the note comes up. Okay. All right. And then here's where I can click Control O. Oh, it's not going to let me do that at all. Let's see if it control. No. Okay. Well, this has got a note with more details. This is a percentage of reserves of PHA is, let's see here, projected to hold at the end of the year. So this, and this is 15.4%. That's your percentage of reserves compared to budget authority. So this housing authority is going to have 206,000 at the end of the year. Ideally, this number would be 0, but it's not 0. It'd be really hard to get it to 0, almost impossible. So I like to see this number 0, and this number could be 0 also. That's for 2021. Now I want to go in here and trend the PUC. I'm gonna put 384. And we'll do this. Let's see, 387. I have to debug it every time. 390. And I'm just going to put one more in here so I don't have to keep doing this. Okay. So this, I've got this PUC trending. Now this in actuals, it went from 368 to 379. And that was from January to August. Back over here so we can see the months when I had actuals. So it went up $11. However, this one was trending, and the tool actually trended it until I clicked something and made it quit trending. Before I realized you guys weren't even seeing my screen. So so when we get the trending PUCs, I'm gonna take these out too. You know what? I'm gonna do something here. Don't save this. I've got it here. I'm going to just share it again. I'm going to reopen it so I get everything functioning properly. Okay, share screen, and I want to share this one. Okay, can you see that to your tool now? Okay, so you're seeing this?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so this tool actually had the PUC trending. And then I went ahead and I put, I just put my numbers in here. I don't want to make it go too far up here. And let's see. Okay. So, so on this one, and I would have asked the PHA for these numbers and pulled them in for VMS, but the purposes of the demonstration, I just want, you know, put something in here and make it kind of quick. So we got PUC going from 368 to 381, and the tool projected, and that was from August, not counting all the numbers I put in, that this PUC would trend clear to 430 by the end of 2021. So we go up here and we look, and right now they got 130,000 subject to offset. It goes to 25% of that right here. So this times 25% is what goes here. And right now this tool, the creators of the tool have estimated that this housing authority will have an offset of approximately $32,000 if Congress mandates an offset. Inflation rate is 1.6%. And again, this was 19.9. And but I asked them, they're current on their 5058, so I'm gonna put 16.77 in here. And you'll see this number change as soon as I hit enter. So probably this number changed more because again, what you're doing in 2020 right now at the end of the year is going to have a big impact on 2021. So I'm just going to go down here and I ask how many, or you guys know how many vouchers are on the street. You've got 25 on the street right now. As you can see, we're not having too much, and this is your 2021 subject to, or 2020 subject to offset, and 2021. I'll take that number out so you can see the change. So I put 25 vouchers. This comes down, but this really comes down. And you want to put 20 vouchers on the street in November, and then you're going to put 10 in December. Okay. Now I want to see what's happened. You've got a 70% success rate. 98,000 subject to offset at the end of 2020. And you're going to end the year of 2021 with $53,000 and nothing subject to offset. Now the access additional tools that I showed you, if you're not sure about your success rate, you click access additional tools. And then you want to say success rate tracking right here. Okay. And then you're going to, it's 2019, 2020. You're going to put in how many vouchers you issued in each month, how many failed to lease, and of the ones that did lease, what year or what month did they lease in? Once you get this all completed, you're going to click this button that says move success rate and time from issuance to the projection tab. I'll try to make this bigger. This one's a little small. Okay, so once you click this, it moves it and it will fill in your success rate and it'll fill this in. Okay, now if you're doing to your tools and you download another one, but you filled all this out, if you click right here, transfer table to new to your tool, it'll take this table, put it in a new to your tool, and it will populate success rate and it'll populate this area. How many have leased in 30 days, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, and 90 to 120. And this is the area, this is the area that I say, don't complete this. You know, you don't have to complete this unless you're close. And, you know, you want to maximize it. You need those, admin fees to survive and to run the program. And of course, we want to help as many people as possible. Now, if this housing authority decides, hey, maybe I want to lease 20 in December or put 20 on the street, we go back up here, they're going to end 2021, the end of next year, $24,000, which is really cutting it close when your BA is 1.3 million. But if you can see that this housing authority, their HAP expenditures as a percent of eligibility only is 106% and 111%. So what this translates to, and like I told you earlier, you're funded based upon what you've spent in the prior year. In 2021, their HAP goes up to 1.4 million. And in year 3, 2022, it goes up to almost 1.6 million. And that is because they spent their reserves. And of course, the inflation factor, but that's not the biggest impact on it. The biggest impact is if you have reserves and you can spend them, spend them. Any questions? Sorry about that, my door's shut. So we go here, we don't want to go to that one. Right here is what I was showing you when I realized that I wasn't showing you anything. Okay. This is the PUC RB analysis tab. This shows how your PUC is trending, and this is they had a little bit of down. They're having mostly upward. And that was 19 and 20. Now, this is average monthly change. If you hover over this, click on it and then hover over it, there's a drop down and you can get average rolling 3 months or the last actual. If you do this, it is going to change your projection analysis tab. So, but you choose the method and then you choose how you're going to trend your PUCs. And let's just try this. And so it trended the PUCs here on a rolling 3-month average. There's a two-year tool guide right here. And then there's some two-year tool videos here too. Oh, you're not gonna be able to see that. Okay. Well, anyway, any questions? I'm going to show you this guide. It did pop up. Here. So when you click on that to your tool guide in the upper right-hand corner, this is what you get. It's just a step-by-step guide. This was put together by Patrick Hatch, who also put together the two-year tool. So this might help you. Let's see.